Story 4 of the bread and wine miraculously multiplied and distributed to the brethren through his prayers. Parts of this were taken from Blessed Cecilia and written in my own words, while other parts were lifted directly from the source. I highly recommend reading the original account from Blessed Sister Cecilia. It is from her The Legend of Saint Dominic. I will pull most of the miracles of Saint Dominic from this source, unless otherwise mentioned. You can find a link in the description to it. Context: Saint Dominic had been in Rome to gain permission to start his Ordo Praedicatorum, Order of Preachers, from His Holiness Honorius III. When the brethren were still living at the church of San Sisto, and formed a community of about 100, Blessed Dominic one day sent Brother John of Calabria and Brother Albert of Rome into the city to beg. From morning to noon they went from house to house, but all in vain. As they were returning home without anything, they passed by the church of Saint Anastasia, where they met a woman who had a great love for the order. Seeing that they had received no alms, she gave them one loaf of bread, saying, "I would hate to see you return empty-handed." They thanked her for the bread and continued on their journey home. Soon they were met by a handsome youth, who earnestly begged an alms of them, but they explained that having almost nothing for themselves, they could hardly give anything to him. As he continued to press them, they said to one another, "How far would a loaf of bread go with us? Let's give it to him for the love of God." No sooner had they given him the bread than he disappeared so quickly that they did not even know in what direction. When they reached the priory, the first one they met was Blessed Dominic, who already knew, by a special revelation, all that had happened. He smiled and said, "I see you have nothing, my children." And they answered, "No, Father." Then they told him what they had received, and of the beggar to whom they gave the bread. But he said to them, "It was an angel of the Lord. Nevertheless, the Lord will feed his servants. Let us go and pray." After they said a brief prayer in the church, he told them to summon the community for their meal. But they reminded him, "Holy Father, how can you tell them to come when we have nothing to serve them?" And he answered, "The Lord will feed his servants." But when they continued to dilly-dally, he called Brother Roger, the procurator, and ordered him to call the brethren to the refectory, because the Lord would provide for his servants. So they set the tables, and when the signal was given, the community entered the refectory. After the blessing of the meal by Blessed Dominic, the brethren sat down, and Brother Henry of Rome began to read. At his table, Blessed Dominic joined his hands in prayer. Then the promise he had made through the Holy Spirit began to be fulfilled. For, in the middle of the refectory, there suddenly appeared two handsome youths, from whose shoulders hung, in front and in back, two beautiful baskets filled with bread. Serving the youngest first, they began, one on the right and the other on the left, to distribute to each of the brethren one whole loaf of bread, of marvelous appearance. When they reached Blessed Dominic and gave him a loaf, they bowed and disappeared. No one to this day knows whence they came or where they went. Then Blessed Dominic said to the brethren, "Come, brethren, eat the bread which the Lord has sent you." Then he told the brethren who were serving to get some wine for the brethren. But they answered, "Holy Father, there is no wine." Then, filled with a prophetic spirit, Blessed Dominic told them to go to the wine cask and draw off the wine the Lord has put there. They went and found the cask filled to the top with wine. Drawing some off, they served it to the brethren, and Blessed Dominic said, "Come, brethren, drink the wine which the Lord has sent." Thus they ate and drank as much as they needed, that day, and the next day, and the day after. When the meal was over, he ordered that all the unused bread and wine be given to the poor, because he did not want anything to remain in the house. But for those 3 days he sent no one out to beg, because the Lord was supplying them with bread and wine from heaven in abundance. Later the Blessed Father gave the brethren a beautiful sermon, exhorting them never to lose their trust in God's providence, even in the direst need. Later on, Brother Tancred, prior of the brethren, Brothers Odo and Henry of Rome, Brother Lawrence of England, Brother Gaudio, Brother John of Rome, and many others described this famous miracle to Sister Cecilia, who was living in the convent of St. Mary in Tempullo, and to other nuns. To them they gave some of the bread and wine, which they kept for many years as relics. The Brother Albert, whom Blessed Dominic had sent with a companion for alms, was one of the two brethren whose happy death at Rome blessed Dominic foresaw. The other was Brother Gregory, a very handsome and gracious friar, who, having received the sacraments with great devotion, was the first to make his journey to the Lord. Just 3 days later, Brother Albert, after receiving the sacraments, exchanged this dark prison for a palace in heaven.